April 2025. The biggest stage in women's college basketball. 2 legendary coaches. 1 perfect season, hanging in the balance. And a post-game confrontation that would become one of the most controversial moments in NCAA tournament history. When UConn's 38-0 season came crashing down against South Carolina in the Final Four, what happened after the final buzzer shocked everyone watching. Geno Auriemma, the winningest coach in college basketball history, stood at the podium and refused to back down. When reporters asked what he said to Dawn Staley during their heated post-game exchange, his answer was ice cold, nothing. But that wasn't the truth. Something was said. Something that made Dawn Staley visibly upset. Something that exposed a tension between these two programs that had been building for years. And when Geno finally explained what happened, he didn't just talk about the game. He talked about pregame handshakes that never happened, jerseys that got ripped, and a double standard he believed existed in how officials treated coaches. This wasn't just about losing a basketball game. This was about respect, protocol, and 2 Hall of Fame coaches who couldn't agree on what actually happened. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a video. Final buzzer sounded. South Carolina 62, UConn 59. The upset was complete. UConn's perfect season was over. But instead of the usual post-game handshakes and respectful exchanges, something went wrong. Cameras caught the moment when Geno Auriemma and Dawn Staley met at midcourt. It wasn't friendly. Geno said something. Dawn's expression changed immediately. Then she walked away. But that wasn't the end of it. Reports started circulating that the exchange was more heated than it appeared on television. When Geno sat down for his press conference, the first question wasn't about the game. It was about what he said to Dawn Staley. His response was deliberately vague. "I just said what I had to say. Nothing." Then he added one more word. "Nothing." But the reporter pressed him. "What specifically did you say?" Geno's answer revealed everything. "Why would I say it? I said what I said, and obviously she didn't like it. I just told the truth." The truth. That phrase hung in the air like a challenge. What truth could be so controversial that it would overshadow a Final Four game? Another reporter asked if he regretted what he said. Geno didn't hesitate. "I don't have any regrets about what I said. Why would I? Why would I?" This wasn't a coach making excuses for a loss. This was someone who felt wronged and wasn't backing down. Then he dropped a detail that explained his frustration. "I've been coaching a long time. I've never had a kid have to change their jersey because somebody ripped it." He was talking about Sarah Strong, UConn star sophomore, who had to change her jersey at the end of the 3rd quarter. Geno believed a South Carolina player ripped it during physical play that the officials didn't call. This wasn't just about one torn jersey. This was about Geno watching his team get physically dominated without getting the whistle. And his frustration reached a breaking point that spilled over into that post-game handshake. But the jersey incident was only part of the story. Because according to Geno, the problem started before the game even began. Geno Auriemma has been coaching for 41 years. He's been to 25 Final Fours. And according to him, there's a protocol that happens before every single NCAA tournament game. 2 coaches meet at half court before tip-off and shake hands. It's tradition. It's respect. It's how things are done. Except in this game, according to Geno, it didn't happen. They announced it on the loudspeaker and I waited there for like 3 minutes, Geno explained during the press conference. 3 minutes. Imagine standing at center court, waiting for your opponent to come out for the traditional handshake, and they never show. That's what Geno says happened. "So, it is what it is," he added, his frustration barely concealed. But here's where things get complicated. Dawn Staley had her own version of events. In her post-game press conference, she said their heated exchange had something to do with Geno not shaking her hand before the game started. Wait, Geno said Dawn didn't come out for the handshake. Dawn said Geno didn't shake her hand. These are 2 completely opposite stories about the same moment. And it gets messier. Videos started circulating on social media showing Geno and Dawn shaking hands at some point during pre-game warm-ups. So, what was Geno talking about? When reporters asked him about the videos, he was dismissive. He insisted there's a specific NCAA tournament protocol, something different from casual interactions during warm-ups. For 41 years I've been coaching, and I've been to 25 Final Fours. And the protocol is before the game, you meet at half court. Anybody ever see that before? Two coaches meet at half court and they shake hands. The confusion reveals something important. These two coaches were operating on completely different wavelengths. Either the protocol handshake happened and one of them doesn't remember it correctly, or it didn't happen and they have very different explanations for why. Either way, it set a tone before the game even started. A tone of disrespect, at least from Geno's perspective, and that tone would carry through every controversial moment that followed. But the pre-game handshake was just the beginning. Because once the game started, Geno's frustration with the officiating would explode in a way no one expected. Sarah Strong is one of the best players in women's college basketball. As a sophomore, she led UConn through an undefeated regular season. But in the Final Four against South Carolina, something happened that Geno Auriemma had never seen in his 41 years of coaching. Sarah had to change her jersey because it was ripped, and Geno was convinced he knew exactly how it happened. "I've never had a kid have to change their jersey because somebody ripped it," Geno said pointedly. And the official said, "I didn't see it." He believed a South Carolina player ripped Sarah's jersey during physical play that went uncalled. In Geno's mind, this was proof that the officials were letting South Carolina get away with excessive contact. There's just one problem with that narrative. Sarah Strong herself said she made a mistake and ripped her own jersey. She admitted it in her post-game interview. It was an accident. But Geno clearly didn't believe that explanation, or at least he didn't believe it during the game. When he saw the torn jersey, his immediate assumption was that South Carolina's physical defense had crossed a line without being penalized. "There were a lot of things that happened in that game," he said. "Unless you're on that sideline, you have no idea what's happening on that sideline." Then he shifted to another grievance that had been building throughout the game: Dawn Staley's interactions with the officials. A reporter asked Geno about Dawn getting on the referees heavily during the second quarter, and whether he questioned if she was allowed to talk to them like that. His answer was careful but devastating. "I just want to make sure there's not a double standard. I'm of the opinion that if I ever talked to an official like that, I would get tossed. So I just want to make sure there's not a double standard, that some people are allowed to talk to officials like that and other people are not." Read between the lines. Geno was accusing the officials of giving Dawn Staley preferential treatment. He watched her get animated, get vocal, get in the refs' faces, and nothing happened. No technical foul, no warning, nothing. And Geno believes if he did the same thing, he'd be ejected immediately. That perceived double standard ate at him throughout the game, and by the time the final buzzer sounded, his frustration had nowhere to go except into that post-game handshake with Dawn. UConn came into this game 38-0. They were the first team in years to reach the Final Four undefeated. They were overwhelming favorites. They had handled every challenge all season long. And then South Carolina reminded everyone why perfection is so hard to maintain in March. The final score was 62-59, but the story was in how UConn's offense completely collapsed when it mattered most. Sarah Strong, the star sophomore who had been unstoppable all season, finished with 12 points on poor shooting. She was UConn's primary offensive option, and South Carolina made her work for every single touch. The defensive pressure was relentless. Every time Sarah caught the ball, multiple defenders swarmed. Every drive to the basket was met with physical contact. And according to Geno, the officials weren't calling it. UConn held South Carolina to just 62 points, well below their 9 0-point tournament average. By every defensive metric, UConn executed their game plan perfectly, but they only scored 59 points themselves. In a Final Four game, that's simply not enough. Geno acknowledged this in his press conference. "I don't have a problem with the physicality of the game. I think the game is physical, and I think we're just as physical in a lot of ways as any other team that we play against. I don't know that we were as aggressive and as physical as we needed to be on the offensive end." That's coach speak, for we got pushed around and didn't push back hard enough. UConn's offense, which had been dominant all season, stalled against South Carolina's defensive intensity. Shots that normally fell didn't. Passes that usually connected were deflected. Drives that typically resulted in layups ended in turnovers. South Carolina didn't just beat UConn, they suffocated them. And Geno saw it happening in real time. He watched his team struggle to generate offense. He watched Sarah Strong, as talented as she is, get overwhelmed by the moment. Maybe if she was a senior, maybe she would go, "Yeah, I've been to a lot of Final Fours. This happens. This is the first time that it's happened to her this year," he explained. The subtext was clear. UConn lost because their star player wasn't experienced enough to handle that level of playoff intensity. South Carolina won by being more physical than the officials were willing to call fouls on. And Geno couldn't do anything but watch it happen. Here's something most people don't know about Geno Auriemma and undefeated seasons. He hates them. Not the winning part, obviously, but the narrative that comes with them, the pressure, the expectations, the assumption that if you're undefeated, you're invincible. Because Geno knows better than anyone that undefeated seasons in women's college basketball rarely end with championships. When a reporter asked how difficult it is for any UConn team to go undefeated in today's era, Geno's response was immediate. "Yeah, I was never comfortable with that narrative. People talking like that going into the season, in the middle of the season, trying to do that in today's day and age, it's always been difficult." He wasn't just uncomfortable with the expectations. He knew his team had vulnerabilities that the undefeated record was masking. Then he provided context that most fans don't consider. "We were an undefeated team one year, and when we got to the regionals, I think we had played 12 of the teams that were in the Sweet 16. It's really hard. It's always been hard." The difference is that this year, UConn went 38-0 without facing the kind of elite competition they'd normally see in a typical season. They were undefeated, but they weren't tested the way they needed to be tested. Geno tried to warn people. "That's why I don't like the narrative. November, December, January, February, I don't care when it is, because there's too many good teams left to play. There's too many big moments left to play in." Then he made a statement that proved prophetic. "The 4 teams that are playing here today, I don't know that you would be surprised if any of them won. So for us to be viewed as they're going to go undefeated and nobody can beat them," he knew. Geno knew before they even got to the Final Four that this team wasn't built to withstand the kind of physical, high-pressure basketball they'd face in April. He knew Sarah Strong, as talented as she is, was still just a sophomore. He knew they had offensive limitations. And when those weaknesses got exposed against South Carolina, it wasn't a surprise to him. It was inevitable, end quote, end quote. But that doesn't make it any less frustrating, especially when he felt like the officials let the game get out of control. After the press conference, questions about the handshake, the officiating, and the physicality, a reporter asked Geno what keeps him motivated to continue coaching. His answer stopped the room cold. "Well, after tonight, I don't know that I want to continue coaching." Silence. Then he clarified, with the kind of perspective that only someone who's been to 25 Final Fours can provide. "I was telling my players that up until last year, I had lost more times in the Final Four than I had won. And that there's no stigma. There's no stain in losing, because you have to be in this. And if you're going to be in this enough times, you're going to lose enough times." Think about that. Geno Auriemma, the winningest coach in NCAA history, has lost more Final Fours than he's won. That's not a criticism. That's mathematics. When you make it to 25 Final Fours in 36 years, you're going to experience plenty of heartbreak. UConn won the national championship in 2024. Then, they went undefeated through 38 games in 2025 before losing in the Final Four. Between 2016 and 2024, they went 9 years without winning a title, but they kept making Final Fours. The narrative during those years was that UConn's dynasty was over. Geno heard all of it, and then in 2024, they won it all again, proving the doubters wrong. The 99.9% of all the kids playing college basketball this year are going to go home without winning a national championship. Geno explained, "Somebody out there Sunday night is going to win one. Everybody else, they're not losers." This is the perspective that separates great coaches from legendary ones. Geno doesn't view losing in the Final Four as failure. He views it as the inevitable result of competing at the highest level year after year. So what's the motivation? Just keep going back and try to change the outcome of games like tonight as often as I can, and never feeling like losing here is any kind of disaster, catastrophe. Oh my God, the world's coming to an end. It's just another opportunity to go forward and work real hard to get back here and try to change the outcome. That's the mindset of someone who's built a dynasty. But even with that perspective, the handshake controversy was going to overshadow everything else about this game. So let's be clear about what actually happened here. Because the handshake controversy is really about something much bigger than two coaches having a disagreement. This is about two legendary programs competing for supremacy in women's college basketball, and the tension that's been building for years finally boiling over on the biggest stage. UConn represents the old guard, 11 national championships under Geno Auriemma, a dynasty that dominated women's basketball for decades. South Carolina represents the new power, the program that's actively challenging UConn's dominance and winning championships while UConn went through that 9-year drought. When Geno talks about those 9 years between championships from 2016 to 2024, that's the exact period when South Carolina emerged as a national power. That context matters. These two coaches have faced each other in high-stakes NCAA tournament games more than almost any other matchup in women's basketball history. When you're meeting that often in elimination games, tensions are going to build. Different coaching philosophies, different styles of play, different relationships with officials. All of it compounds over time until one bad moment in one game causes everything to explode. The pregame handshake, the jersey incident, the double standard accusations, none of these things happen in isolation. They're all connected to years of competitive history between these programs. And when UConn's perfect season ended in the worst way possible, Geno's frustration had nowhere to go except into that post-game exchange with Dawn. Was he making excuses? Possibly. But he also raised legitimate questions about consistency in officiating and the protocols that are supposed to govern NCAA tournament games. Did Dawn get preferential treatment from officials? That's subjective. But Geno clearly believes the answer is yes, and he made sure everyone knew it. The problem is that moments like this can define careers. Geno Auriemma has 11 national championships, over 1,200 career wins, and a legacy as one of the greatest coaches in any sport. But this handshake controversy is what people are going to remember about the 2025 Final Four. Not UConn's 38-0 season, not the incredible defensive performance that held South Carolina to 62 points, not the young team that exceeded expectations all year, just the post-game drama and the accusations that followed. And that's what makes this whole situation so complicated, because there's no clear villain here, just two legendary coaches who couldn't agree on what happened, and a controversy that will define their rivalry for years to come. In the end, what actually got said during that post-game handshake probably doesn't matter as much as what it represents. Two coaching legends at different stages of their careers. One clinging to a dynasty that's being challenged. One building a program that's already won 2 championships and clearly wants more. The 2025 Final Four was supposed to be about UConn's perfect season and their march toward another title. Instead, It became about handshakes that may or may not have happened, jerseys that may or may not have been ripped, and double standards that may or may not exist. Geno Auriemma said he told Dawn Staley the truth, and she didn't like it. Whatever that truth was, it exposed a tension that goes far deeper than one basketball game. UConn and South Carolina will meet again. These programs are too good not to. And when they do, this moment will hang over everything. The question isn't who was right or who was wrong. The question is whether two Hall of Fame coaches can move past this, or whether the handshake controversy will define their rivalry forever. Based on what happened in that press conference, the answer seems pretty clear. Stay locked with my channel Simply Explained for more updates.